Republican megadonor and billionaire Sheldon Adelson has decided to back Donald Trump. Now, earlier on, he didn't want to do it. I think he was leaning towards Marco Rubio. He had previously bought Marco Rubio in prior elections for, obviously, the Senate. And that's his guy. He's his little puppet bitch. But Marco Rubio obviously couldn't get 8 people to like him in the country. So now that it's Donald Trump, and it's Donald Trump for sure, he decided, yeah, I'm going to back him. So the Hill reports here, Adelson is willing to donate more than $100 million to Donald Trump's campaign. He officially endorsed Trump in an op-ed Friday, saying he exemplifies the American spirit of determination, commitment to cause, and business stewardship. Okay, that's hilarious for so many reasons. He exemplifies the American spirit of determination. How exactly? Because he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and his daddy was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, Trump has this line where he says, I only took $1 million loan from my father. Yeah, a small loan of $1 million. First of all, LOL, $1 million is not a small loan. Can you imagine some kid in Harlem? Like, small loan. My parents just gave me $1 million. Preposterous. But on top of that, it's not true. He actually got way more than that. You know, his dad passed away at some point. That money went somewhere. It was split between the kids. So Trump got way more than $1 million. So it's just a lie. So I don't know what you mean determination. And then, oh, he's good at business. Yeah, but everybody leaves out the minimum 4 bankruptcies. There's actually been more than that now. The 4 bankruptcies is based off an old article, and I know there's been one since. So it's at least 5 bankruptcies. Now, again, Trump wiggles his way out of this one by saying, I never went bankrupt. I never went bankrupt. I never went bankrupt. Okay, I never went bankrupt. And he repeats it to the point where people are like, I don't know, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, I don't know. But people think he's a good businessman, so who cares? It's a wash. I guess he's a good businessman. No. He wiggles out of it by saying, I never went bankrupt. His companies went bankrupt. Yes, he personally never went bankrupt, but what he did is he would load his companies up with debt, run out the back door with all the money, and screw over all the workers. So his companies went bankrupt at least 5 times. Hey, guess what? One of my companies never went bankrupt. By the way, I say companies like I have multiple companies. I don't. But I guess by at least one way of measuring it, I'm a better businessman than Donald Trump. His companies went bankrupt 5 times. And no, that's not like a get-out-of-jail-free card. Like, oh, well, you can't criticize it because it's his companies and not him. Of course I can! Especially the way he did it, because he did it specifically to fuck over the workers and get rich himself and run out the back door with all the money. So Sheldon Adelson is just wrong. But then again, what would you expect from such a sleazy businessman himself? For those of you who don't know, Sheldon Adelson made his money through casinos. And there was this huge story a few years ago about how there were, these bills popping up in Congress to shut down online gambling. Like, I'm sure you guys remember the heyday, or I certainly do. Perhaps it's just a circle I run in, but like online Texas Hold'em, online gambling, like, oh, you could go play for real money and all these different sites. And it was this huge thing. I knew people who made a living doing it. Congress was like, yeah, fuck that. Shut it down. Guess who was behind the lobbying effort to shut down online gambling? Sheldon Adelson. So this jackass who made all of his money through casinos hired lobbyists to make the moral values argument. Well, obviously, they paid politicians, too, to do their bidding. But then they'd go to the public and say, oh, what do you mean moral values? We got to make sure our kids don't get addicted to gambling. What are you, crazy? We have to make sure of that. So the same people that were making the moral values argument were making all their money from casinos. So it was just to keep a monopoly. So he's not a businessman as much as he's a fucking con artist, and he's corrupt through and through. That's Sheldon Adelson. But the most important point here is everything Donald Trump's been saying from the beginning. I don't take big money. I'm self-funded my campaign. That is not true. It's not true. In fact, we covered a story. I don't know of anybody else who covered it. I don't know of anybody else who fucking saw it. But we covered a story right in the middle of the election, or early on in the election, when Trump was using that talking point over and over and over and over and over. Politico had a piece. I think it was Politico. It might have been the Washington Post, but I think it was Politico. They had a piece about how Donald Trump went to all the same billionaire Republican donors that all the other Republicans go to. And he went hat in hand begging for money. He said, look, I want to run for president. I'm going to need some funding. Help a brother out. They all said no to him. It was only after he was snubbed by these billionaire mega donors that he hit the campaign trail and said, I'm against this big money in politics. So much corruption going on everywhere. They're puppets. I'm not a puppet. I'm not bought. I'm self-funding my campaign. Well, the only reason you're not bought is because they didn't want to buy you. But you're fucking for sale, that's for sure. And then on top of that, he's had this scam going where he says, I'm self-financing my campaign. You go to his fucking website, there's a donate button there. And then, yes, they take money and they use that money for running. Now, you can argue, well, that's different because it's, you're taking donations at the smaller level, so that's fundamentally different than big donors. I agree with that, but he doesn't say that. He says, I'm self-financing, and then he takes donation. That's not self-financing. So in like 40 different ways, he's lying about it, and he's not telling the truth. And now you know, without a shadow of a doubt, Papa Adelson's like, yeah, I'm going to give you money. And Trump reversed the second he got the GOP nomination. He reversed. And he said it. He's like, well, now we are going to be raising money for the general election. So, like, he pretends I'm so principled. He pretends to be like Bernie in the primaries, and then right when he gets to the general. Did I say that? I didn't mean any of that. Now I'm flipping, and I'm saying I am going to raise money, because what are you going to do? You got to play the game. You got to defeat Crooked Hillary, am I right? The irony of calling her Crooked Hillary, as he's going to do the same shit now. So, it's just an utter joke. Bottom line is, guys, don't believe the hype. When Trump makes those arguments, he makes those arguments because he knows they're effective. But he's not actually abiding by that shit. You think he's actually principled like Bernie Sanders? How unbelievably naive must you be to fall for the repeated con man as he cons you again? And then finally, and the most important thing about Sheldon Adelson now saying, I'm going to give him over $100 million. Remember, during the election cycle, Donald Trump appeared to be the only sane person on stage on the issue of Israel. This is in the primary, where he said, okay, I'm going to be neutral. And then when he was pressed on that, he said, understand, guys, you could be as pro-Israel as you want. I'm more pro-Israel than anybody in the world ever. But you at least have to appear to be neutral so you can try to get a deal and you can work with the other side. That was a scandal. People portrayed him, anti-Israel, terrible guy, blah, 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 blah. So that was his position in the primary. Now that Papa Adelson shows up and his number one issue is Israel. I think he literally calls himself an Israel firster. He cares more about that than anything in U.S. politics. All of a sudden, Trump, the other day, article comes out. He says Israel should expand settlements. He goes, the U.S., we haven't been treating Israel very kind. We haven't been treating them very fairly. And I don't think they should stop. I think they should expand it. You thought this guy was principled? He is, ironically, at the end of the day, he may end up being the ultimate political insider when he's portrayed himself all along as an outsider and above the fray and not interested in playing the corrupt games. My ass cheeks, he's not interested.